evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this very important topic on the focus on sustainable events. In this dynamic world, business have realized without being sustainable, a long growth is not possible. In ever-changing disruptions who are forcing globalization, urbanization, and paucity of natural resources, it gives us a chance how we can think together for sustainable tourism. When I see sustainability, I clearly see three words: people, planet, and profit. These three words when provide an opportunity to renew and integrate efforts with a view to meet a significant degree of local, regional, national, and global aspiration in a defined time frame, I see a sustainable development. While introducing MICE events and sustainability at one common platform, we must create a perfect balance of three pillars, that is pupils, planet, and profit. Events in the MICE industry is traveler try to maximize their expenses in lowest spend, which put a lot of pressure on the available resources. As a MICE is being a big support to tourism sector, it cannot be ignored. But we just need to see a fine balance between the growth in the events. And that factor of this is the sustainability. World Economic Forum this year predicted world's largest economies. For us, it was a happy surprise that the Indian economy will become the third largest economy in the world by 2030 after US and China. As we discussed earlier, MICE being an integral and important part of the tourism. As per the Global Business Travel Association, India's annual growth in the business travel is 11.4%. This figure is largest among the top 15 business travel market segments. According to the report by the KPMG, India is now a 30 billion business travel market and expected to more than triple to 93 billion by 2030. The question remains an important question. We are going to triple our growth in the next 10 years, more or less. But are we prepared to do this in a sustainable manner? How we can ensure we are not exploiting our resources, the people, and the nature, and we will making enough profit too. As we all know, the Sustainable Development Goals are global goals were formally adopted by 193 members nation in the UN in September 2015 and expected to tackle the world's biggest problem by 2030 by empowering people, driving prosperity, protecting planet, fostering peace, and nurturing global partnership. This is a huge, humongous task, and these 17 goals which they created is no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water, sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work, economic growth, industry, innovation, infrastructure, reduce inequality, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace and justice, and partners to achieve the goal. And this is a big task. The focus is on sustainable and inclusive development. An idea is to look at the important aspect. The local administration is also need to focus on the areas like adequate water supply, continuous power supply, solid waste management, efficient public transport, good governance, especially e-governance and citizens' participations, safety and security and quality control of services. As tourism, we can promote a positive image that we should and we must. With this note, ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce my esteemed panelists to you. Ms. Poonam Singh, Chief Happiness Officer and founder member of Indian Hospitality Network, that is IHN. Mr. Kush Kapoor, CEO Rosette Hotels and Resorts and Chairman National Council on Tourism and Hospitality, ASSOCHAM. And Mr. Akshar Patel, Vice President of Conventions, AHUA, Asian American Hotel and Owner Association, which he was just sharing us around 40 to 60% hotel is owned by the Indian American there. So let me begin with the first question to lady here, Ms. Poonam Singh. Poonamji, how to provide the ultimate blazer experience where you are combining business and leisure? How do you go about complementing MICE experience and ticking the boxes of business and leisure activities, keeping sustainability in mind? My first question, please.
Thank you, Amaresh. Good evening, gentlemen and members of the audience. It's a pleasure to be here at the M.I.C.E Showcase 2.0. Um, in response to what you asked, Amaresh, I think we'll just backtrack very, very briefly and speak about what exactly be leisure travel is, which actually has become a byword signifying travelers that combine a business trip with leisure, and this goes much deeper than just being a casual trend. Personally speaking, I have been doing this actively for at least the last 15 years. And it's something that a lot of us tend to do, the ones who are fond of traveling and who are fond of exploring destinations. So here's some ways in which travel providers can benefit from this very lucrative trend. So first, I'm just going to throw a couple of figures at you, and I'm going to quote the Brit Street Global Hospitality Report, which says that 60% of the travelers reportedly have taken leisure trips. 30% have been adding at least 2 additional days to their business itinerary in this trip. And those that have done so have said that it actually helps them work much more effectively. It takes out some of the stress that continuous travel puts in all our lives and theirs, obviously, and it keeps them much more relaxed while they're away from home for extended periods of time. And of course, there's also the added benefit of spending quality time with a significant other. It could be your spouse, a family member, a friend, and maybe even one of your children. So it increases the amount of time that road warriors can spend with their family, friends, and loved ones. Now, leisure travelers are sort of evenly split between male and female. And most of them currently are between the age group of 45 to 54. That's the first riders that we have. The second largest group is from the 25 to the 35 bandwidth, and these are representing millennials who are accustomed to, let's say, a kind of a blurred and digital lifestyle. They're always the connected generation. They're more apt to deploy business mixed with a pleasure mindset. And these are the guys who, for example, will go out for the evening and actually look upon it as a networking opportunity. Now, leisure travel continues to grow. 60% of Bridget Street respondents were more likely to take a leisure trip now than they were 5 years ago. And the percentage is even greater when you go amongst the younger travelers. Regardless of age, 94% of the respondents said that they do this so that they can gain additional cultural experiences, explore the cities, and understand the local mindset and population better. Additionally, about 55 odd percent of the leisure travelers bring family members with them, while about 29%, 29% said that they haven't exactly tried it right now, but they are looking to do so in the very near future. And I realize that I'm quoting Western examples, but modern traveler mindsets in India are pretty much the same as the ones overseas, and they don't really differentiate between Western and Eastern examples. So clearly, this would apply to the pan India tourism marketplace also. Now, for the hoteliers and travel suppliers, leisure travelers offer a clear opportunity to increase their revenues from the business travelers expanding and extending stays to maybe helping them out with their family members whom they have to entertain while the business traveler is involved in his or her official 3 4 days. And apart from that, you get extra food, you may get F&B, you may get spa experiences, you may get shopping experiences, you may get business related to ground transport. So these are just a few examples that I'm giving of how hoteliers could benefit from it. Non-business oriented hotels can easily strategize targeted marketing to this demographic to grab their share of the pie, so as to speak, because right now they have less appeal as business come leisure properties. Now, when we look at the MICE events in the weddings market, this is a clear indication and an opportunity to upsell, to curate, to deliver out of the box experiences. So, for example, MICE movements, and Amaresh, you would probably know this the best, are often repeat businesses for operators who, over the years, have been able to get a clear understanding and knowledge and picture of their client's temperament. What exactly does the client want to do for extracurricular activities? Do they want post conference tours, pre conference tours? And what other kind of cultural or entertainment or even shopping activities would they like to go in for? So in B leisure, they also need to get familiar with the accompanying and joining members' mindsets, find out what they would like to do in those couple of days they are there, after, of course, advising them of varied possibilities, and then deliver bespoke. If you don't do this, you will have so many people in the market doing virtually what you do that others are going to go online. And unfortunately, something which was applicable in our younger days, which was client loyalty, is slowly beginning to erode itself. So you definitely need to go bespoke. The focus of this panel discussion is sustainable events, and I'm going to come to those now. Sustainability is a very, very important imperative in today's fragile, fragmented world, especially with an overloaded ecosystem and the pandemic having brought the concerns that it does. So MICE event and wedding planners who are responsible for putting numbers on the ground globally are seeing this as one of the fastest growing and ecologically correct trends to go with. Not politically correct, but ecologically correct. And for good reason. Conferences and event planners have a very vital role to play in addressing this imbalance and being able to do good in the sustainably basket frame, as they say. And as younger and more climate conscious researchers are coming of age, it may not be long before, even in India, a fully certified sustainable event is a minimum requirement, because that's the way the world is going. And especially with the UN Charter, as you very rightly pointed out, Amaresh, where it's not just 7 SDGs, but all 17 that are actually applicable to all of us. Now, as regards marrying sustainability into this program, you, meaning all of us, have to train yourself to think along those lines virtually on autopilot. So you start with the simple stuff, which could be green solar energy, it could be water conservation and recycling, a ban on single use plastic, including on things like hotel toiletries, for example. It could be, carry bags which are paper instead of plastic. It could be the waste management and whether you do things like compost heaps, how you treat your gardens, how you, work with energy conservation and being environmental friendly there. Your in-room water bottles, are they glass or are they plastic? Is your stationery on demand? Simple policies like, I don't know if Kush is going to laugh or if Akshar is going to laugh. I have yet to go into a five-star hotel, request for a single egg and a single toast and get that. I always get a bread basket and I always fight and say, why are you doing this? Because I know it's going to be wasted. I hang on to my plate, and in between courses, when they come to remove my plate, I say, no, I'm an environmental warrior. I'm trying to save water and I want this plate to be recycled. Now, I realize that five-star hotels don't understand this because this has to come in the training manual. the guys who are serving you are actually just doing what they've been trained to do. So when they come across people like me, they actually think we're a little off, mentally. But these are things which are very simple examples. Then something like e-vehicles, for example, on site, if you're a big resort, definitely engaging with the local community, maintaining perhaps a kitchen garden or buying local produce from the small scale vendors, encouraging local artisans, using their art and craft as decor, selling it in the gift shop, employing local staff and their training, a CSR program related to skill development, hygiene, even financial management, because people do have the talent, but they don't really know how to manage money properly. All these can tick the boxes. And lastly, I would say that there are so many programs that can be offered keeping MICE and wedding businesses in mind. And they range from something as simple as perhaps team programs, there could be challenge capsules, there could be art, cuisine, music, dance experiences, artifacts, handloom workshops, storytelling on heritage and folklore, where you involve the local community and you pay them a little bit for it, local cleanup drives, hiking trails, religious experiences, where something as simple as your packed lunch and leaving no garbage behind is recognized. Providing litter bags to folks who are going out for a hike and saying, pick up your litter and bring it back for recycling and reusing. Youngsters and older folks can be more mindful on them, so use them as your influencers and brand ambassadors. Start getting folks to reduce dependency on mobile phones. It's the energy output over there. Same goes for Wi-Fi and laptops, and to connect with themselves and other human beings and nature. And it's a question of sustaining minds and hearts, forming soul connections with the environment towards actually leaving a halfway decent planet for future generations. And Amarish, you cannot profit if there is nothing left for you to profit from. So you've got to work towards that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You very clearly, and mentioned that my stakeholder, which is the event organizer, be it a corporate or association, PEO, PCO, meeting planner, FNB, AV, and most importantly, the hotels and resort, the venue, the whole transport system, they play a very important role. And I'm now asking a question to Mr. Kus Kapoor on a sustainability. The war on single-use plastic has been a hot topic this year and remain an important one in the coming years. How you are adopting and implementing SDG goal in corporate culture and in hotel operation, especially during events. Over to you, Kus.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And if you allow me, I'll just answer Miss Singh's query, what she had about the bread pieces, basically. So what we do, we very clear when the guest is coming and is asking for a bread to be toasted. We seriously ask them whether you need one or two slices. It's only what then they say. So we are out of this business in terms of giving them a bread basket. We don't do that at all. So
That's
if they ask
wonderful.
for one piece, we're giving them and we toast it in front of them. So they are also seeing that it's getting right in front of them. So on a buffet system, we are still following that on my buffet, even for all my hotels I'm talking about. If it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you will find my senior management team, at least for breakfast and lunch, standing out there because we also want to interact with the guests. And there's a lot of learning out there. So the answer to ma'am's question, yes, we do ask guests one or two toasts, obviously, and I completely agree with ma'am. It saves huge amount of your own cost, if I talk about, plus obviously sustainability of the environment obviously increases out there. Second, if I talk about we Indians, with respect to all of us, we still treat guests like God. But yes, if I have to look at the environment and that's what the world is going forward. When you come and sit on the table, we don't fill your glass full. We always make sure we fill it half. And then if you want more, we obviously pour more water out there. Third, what ma'am also said clearly, we have tied, and thanks to a positive on the COVID scenario I'm talking about, there are a lot of good things actually have happened also. We've tied up with the local artisans, and we also have picked up, if I talk about, we used to get honeys imported from abroad. We've now started picking up honey from Himachal Pradesh. And we picked up actually from the local villages out there where I'm 100% sure that the honey is absolutely organic out there. So that's the way we have started supporting the community also. Now, if I talk about plastic, that's what Mr. Amresh has asked for. In my hotels, you will only find up to, as of now, between 5 to 10% of plastic bottles, which are also on the verge of moving out in another, I would say, precisely 30 days. Rest the entire hotel, banquets, rooms, restaurants, spa, you name everything, all the guest areas are all glass bottles. And these are our own glass bottles with our own branding out there. I'll just probably give one more example that we actually convert the RO water in our hotels to alkaline water. We've installed our own bottling plant in the hotel. So we actually convert the RO water to the alkaline water, and this is the highest quality of water which you will get in any of the hotels in the country. So I'm talking about a pH level of almost about 8.4. A normal mineral bottle which you get from the market with branded things, you will get the pH value for about 7.4, 7.5. I'm higher talking about 8.4, which is the highest quality which you get. You do save a lot of money because when the plastic is out, these bottles can be recycled. Actually, if you ask me today's time, especially these youngsters, and what Mayam has said is absolutely correct. You know, the maximum guest, if I talk about the age bracket, is all young crowd which is coming in. Now that crowd is far more educated in terms of environment, you know, and at times they tell you that please don't spoil this thing, please don't, I mean, do excessive of this use. They are very educated, and that actually is helping us tremendously. So if we talk about water bottle, yes, we've already moved into the glass bottles. We're talking about the carry bags which were there earlier are all into jute bags right now. I also will take out to the back areas, which you call it as the house areas. You know, all the companies, organizations have their appraisal system. They have their joining formalities where you have to get the appointment letter signed. We've already moved them online right now. If I talk about a couple of things, if I talk about especially when we talk about the breakfast, the morning bakeries, the size of the bakeries, macaroons, pastries, you're talking about donuts and everything has also reduced because only to avoid more wastage in the hotel. And yes, guest if he wants 2, 3, 4 more for, obviously we are happy to offer them on that part. We also actually roped in a company from US during COVID time. And this company is from US. It's called a Zero Water Mask. We've done a research for almost, we did an R&D during the COVID time for one of my Delhi resorts. We've now started generating. So we got the solar panels, obviously, from the shipments from US. We've installed it on our rooftop. This is one of the hotels in the entire country where if you're going as a guest, you are actually getting the water which is generated from the moisture in the air. So that's the purity of water. So this is not bottled water. This is not underground water. This is the water which is being generated right from the air. Obviously, we're talking about the property where you're sitting. So it's the air of the property where you're getting the water out there. The plastic, as I mentioned, is 90% all out right now. Next 30 days, that's the target given to any entire team. It's going to be 100%, I would say, plastic free. We definitely use a lot of recycled paper. Even if I have to do printouts, we prefer using the other side, which is mostly the empty paper, which is blank. We prefer using that paper also. We definitely are investing decent amount of money to reduce our carbon footprint, which is another, I would say, a major challenge when it comes to ecosystem or saving the environment in any of the industry you're working in anywhere. The bathroom amenities also, if I talk about during our time when we joined the industry, it was all wrapped into plastics. Your comb, your shaving kit, your gels and everything. It's all now in paper. So they're all paper covers. They're all paper bags in which all these things are. Takeaway, which were plastic right now, thanks to the government involvement, actually, it's all now with biodegradable material. So you cannot use the plastics for even your containers for your carryaways also. A lot of hotels in India have started moving into the mobile, I would say the keyless system for the doors of entry into your room. So now you actually use your mobiles to enter your room or even unlock your doors. So if I talk about sheer number, this costs you some thousands of crores rupees. If I talk about a global scenario, and yes, it's initially an investment, but over a period of time, you actually save a lot of money. And this is like, I mean, for a young generation, this is far better because they love playing with this technology. Cutlery, crockery, glassware, and especially if I talk about the banquet events, when we're talking about the mice out here, you know, when I talk about it's all to do with your educating your customer, and your customers in today's time, they understand very well and they actually appreciate. So when we try speaking to them that instead of putting in those heavy containers or your chefing dishes, can I put in small containers and give it to you? because that becomes more of a personalization, more of an individual, and you know actually how much is going on, and it's just not keeping on the chefing dish for hours and hours, and it gets spoiled after that on that part. So something like these, there are a lot of activities, a lot of initiatives have already been taken, and the endeavor is to go as far as you can, because ultimately, it's only going to save your bottom line on that. Thank you.
Correct.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks for wonderful insight you share with the audience. And now I move to Mr. Achal Patel on the owner side. Achal, how to incorporate corporate social responsibility into the sustainable development goal in sustainability? Because advantages for organizer to integrate CSR and give back to local communities is very high. What activities can delegate do to leave a positive impact on the all the stakeholders of the MICE? Over to you, Akshay.
Well, thank you, Amrish, and good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and whatever part of the world you're watching or in at the moment. And I also want to make sure and share my gratitude that I hope everyone and their families and their teams and everyone in their countries are doing well during this time. But I think the horizon is clearing up, that hopefully we'll see each other very soon, either in some international waters or international airports. So once again, thank you for having me. Amrish, you raise a very good point and question. So what I can share with you from my experience and what we are doing here, at least in our organization, is that I fully believe that whether you're a traveler, whether you are an event organizer, or any type of contribution outside of your geographic landscape, that you should incorporate the corporate or the social responsibility locally where you are, right? For many years, we've all said, think locally, act globally. But it's also reversed at this moment. Think globally, but act locally at the same time. So what we've done here, at least in our organization, is if we're going to a city, for example, with a large convention of 6,000, 10,000, or even a small corporate meeting, whether it's a board meeting for 50 to 500, we actually try to make sure that we use the local services, use the local municipalities and their services to bring back to the local business development or the economic development. In my years on LinkedIn and so forth, I created a post just a couple of months ago that one meeting or one traveler actually gives back to 11 different industries, either directly or indirectly. So for me to go from just Atlanta to New York, a prime example is I'm giving back to the airports. I'm giving back to the local restaurants. I'm giving back to the ground transport, whether it's a Lyft, Uber, local taxis. I'm giving back to the souvenir shops. I'm giving back to the local coffee shops and so forth. So even if my expenditure is less than, let's say, $500 or $500,000, my goal is to give back to local corporate small business solutions. That way they see the economic development, right? And I think that's important to now realize, because everyone now wants an experience. I just came back from Phoenix yesterday, where the lodging conference was just being held. Just to give you a quick overview, the lodging conference is combined of roughly 1,900 C-level executives in the hotel hospitality space. And we were just discussing that, frankly, this bleisure business or bleisure business that we call it is what's going to sustain us for the next year and a half or so here in the States, and maybe even globally. We don't see corporate business travel somewhat returning until maybe about 23, or at least normality. So with this bleisure business, as Ms. Singh mentioned, as well as Mr. Kapoor, we now have to find a way of those local lights, or what we have been introduced as influencers, right, are bringing to the social media platforms and so forth. And you look at that and you say to yourself, okay, the same experience that I could have had in Paris, I could have maybe in Frenchtown and Washington, D.C., or some other establishments here. So I think it's very important, and people have to, and especially our industry now needs to organize ways that we bring corporate economic development back to the geographic setting of where we are. The second piece of that, I think, is that, as Mr. Kapoor mentioned, honey was available globally, but now, here in the States, convention centers are growing honey on their rooftops. They see this opportunity to grow vegetables, honey, and so forth, the sustainability. So they bring the local experts in to say, look, I'm not in the business of growing honey, but I have, 10,000 square feet of rooftop space. Why don't you create a botanical garden on my rooftop space, seasonality piece of it, and give back to the food and beverage piece? And then I'm just kind of going back into a few other things into sustainability, but also corporate food and beverage is a huge area of waste. I think our neighbors in China, but also our neighbors in Europe, have perfected this better than anyone, where they do portion control, right? People that consume items, whether it's in food and beverage or pleasure or services or whatever it is, if you do it in portions, there's actually scientific data that says you waste less, you have a better experience, and you're not just diving into unhealthy habits, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever you want to call it across the board. And now we see that, right? Before, here in the US, large spreads of buffets, you put the largest ladle, the largest spoon, and slap it on. But now we're seeing that, the prepackaged piece of it, the portion piece of it, and it's helping not just the organizers, but helping back to sustainability. So just a few points, Amrish, but I think if we start acting responsibly in this way, we'll bring not only sustainability, we'll bring a better experience, we'll bring better economic development, but I think the relationships that come across from it, you'll see that they're much more fruitful than just in bulk.
Thanks, Akshay. Thanks. In fact, I was just going to the negative impact contributor. So, so highest is the electricity and heating, which is 25% contribute, transport 14%, deforestation 18%, agriculture 13%, industry 10%, waste contribute 4%, and others component contribute around 16% in the total negative list. And coming to you again, Poonam, there is another problem of the carrying capacity with any destinations. You have seen what happened in the Leh after the movie shot the Three Idiots there. This associated problem occurs when leisure in MICE travelers clash during the high season, because you have the same period like be it Delhi, Agra, Jaipur, Varanasi, Udaipur, Goa, or the Rishikesh. So attendees don't receive the opportunity to experience the best, because you are having a very long queues in front of the Taj Mahal or the Red Fort, the very expensive venues, the hotel rooms rate goes up. And so this problem is how to this balance this leisure in MICE is expanding the tier B to what is the solution in your mind?
So I think let me just rewind a bit over here. Going back to what you mentioned about the three Ps and the fact that profit is high on people's minds, and most of the people tend to think profit before they think anything else. And if they see something that Kosh is doing which is going off well, they will not even take a moment to evaluate for themselves that if it's working for Kosh in whatever parameters or verticals he is operating in, will it also work for me and the kind of people that I have in my client list? So when you talk about a destination, if it has got good reviews, if people have come back and raved about it, and in today's Instagrammable world, you put up a couple of nice pictures, you sex up the quotient of the place, and the entire world says, "Yaar, mere ko jana hai." So it's a wannabe kind of thing. It goes far beyond outdoing the Joneses. And in that, because we are dealing at times with new destinations, we're not familiar with those destinations, just beating down that well-traveled path is a huge risk that we run. We did that in Leh Ladakh. I have yet to go there. Twice I was supposed to take a road trip there, and in both instances, very tragically, the person I was traveling with suddenly died. So now I've got this mental thing that I'm perhaps not meant to go there. But I have so many friends who've been there, and they all rue the day that Leh and Ladakh opened up. and they've said it's not made the local population. In a way, it has actually raped the local economy. And we're doing it to ourselves, not just in Leh Ladakh. We're looking at South India, we're looking at the islands, and we're saying to ourselves, oh, good, let's make another Maldives over there. We're not seeing whether it's going to work for the local population over there. So we need to evaluate for ourselves. You gave an example of Agra and Jaipur. There was a time long ago when Agra was a day destination. Despite the fact that there were so many key hotels over there, they used to struggle to get bums on beds. It was only when people, the hoteliers as well as the local tour operators, repeatedly petitioned the ministries that the talk of an airport came up, the highway came up over there, and hotels started seeing more business. Now, it's a very fragile ecosystem. What I am only going to suggest is be mindful. If you're not mindful and you're just aping blindly, then it is going to cause a lot of disruption. The other thing is, do I necessarily have to sell something exactly the way you sell, or Kush sells, or Akshay sells? Why can't I make my own product or service? You may have something that you are exceptionally good at. I may have something that I'm also exceptionally good at. Let's play to each other's strengths. And one very important thing that I will propose, which COVID has taught all of us, we don't have to be all things to everybody in our business module.
Thanks,
Let's
Poonam.
collaborate. If I can give a service to A, B, and C in my client list, which is actually emanating from Akshar or yourself or Kush, I should have the bandwidth to do so. Everyone's operating on a commissionable basis or on the form of a finder's fee. Take that. You don't have to do the whole damn thing yourself. When
Thanks.
you do that, you're automatically balancing out that imbalance and you're working with local providers over there. So that's part of the solution. We need to be part of the solution. We need not to be so insecure about ourselves that we feel कि अरे यार उसको client दे दिया तो वो तो उसका ही हो गया. You should have
Thank you
that
so much.
belief in yourself कि मैं जो दे सकती हूँ वो चीज कोई और नहीं दे सकता.
Thanks, Poonam. Thanks. So, as Akshay very rightly said about the food habits, and I'm coming to the question again because if you see the kind of weddings we do in the hotels and resort and the corporate cocktail dinners with the 2+2 and now 3+3 snacks, and the whole dinner goes on the best. So, this with food waste, this is a growing problem in the MICE industry, and event planners need to take more care to find a solution with the catering team. This is a major problem faced by hoteliers to how to solve this growing issue, be it a wedding or the corporate social event or cultural event. So, how this problem can be sorted out, Mr. Kos?
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would say thanks to Mother Nature because of this COVID. There's a lot of food has been. We've been able to manage a lot of food wastage because the weddings which were running as big fat weddings, some crores of rupees and some 5,000 people in one. I mean, we Indians are the best in terms of flaunting, right? But now
Exactly.
because restrictions have come into 50, now maximum 100, 150 people, I guess people have also understood and realized. So I would say in the last 1.5 years, there's a lot of saving of the environment which has happened. And you can actually feel that in the air right now, easily, even sitting in Delhi, I would say during this time also. So coming to your question, sir, yes, for me, the first and the foremost thing is the education. Now, education for me, it's so hotel is so I have an event planner who's I would say a sandwich or who's actually a consultant between the guest and the hotel. So my forte would be is to educate my the partner or a consultant or an event management planner basically that was you need to go back and speak to the guest that we are happy to give you a better quality. It might sound less quantity, but I'm more than happy to give you that experience. So I don't, instead of giving you those 100 plates or buffet or chefing dishes, can I reduce it maybe to 50? But let me give you an experience which you and even your guest would love to do that. So that education for me, it's the most important aspects when we talk about the MICE, because we know the volume goes into the MICE. Second, if I talk about the menu engineering, so at times what I have seen when I sit with my guests and even my chefs of the hotel, guest says, "Aap ye kar dena, get this, and get this, add 4 items, this, ye, and all this stuff." So I have been fortunate enough to have very smart chefs who actually at times put their foot down and they ask guests that if you need 10 items, are you sure your guests are going to eat those and relish and enjoy, or you just because you want to flaunt yourself, you want to put it those number of 10 items, 10 snacks and maybe 10 desserts out there. So if not, then chef recommends them actually. That's it. If you're coming to my hotel, what do you expect me to do? You want me to give you 100% confidence, right? You want every guest to walk out of this ballroom with a memory that they should talk for the next 100 years. That was an event which Mr. Sharma, Mr. Mehta did, and we love that event. If you want that kind of experience to happen, let me deliver that for you. But give me that opportunity, give me that flexibility to create that experience. And I actually have seen, sir, if you ask me, 80% of the guests actually give that freedom to the chef. Because if you, as the hotel, is taking responsibility, then that makes a lot of difference. But that I would say the first step has to be taken by the hotel, has to be taken by the chef, has to be taken by the general manager of the hotel, and you need to sit face on face with the guests. And it works. At least it has worked for my hotels. Third thing, as I said, offer them smaller portions. Rather than putting in those, you obviously will for surely have chefing dishes, but then also chefing dish, rather than filling them on top, why don't you fill the chefing dish maybe about 70%? Because that saves a lot of food. That saves a lot of money on both sides. The desserts, if you're giving them, give them in small portion. And as I said earlier also, eat as much as you want. But it is when you're giving smaller portion, even, psychologically, a guest also feels, rather than filling a plate, if I've taken 2 small portions in those handies or whatever, I automatically feel that I've eaten a lot. So that psychology, so we actually train our people more in terms of psychology aspect rather than getting into the volumes. The fourth and the fifth, if I talk about, when we talking about the buffet items, as I mentioned earlier also, there is always an aspect, some part of the food will always be left over. Now, I've got a trained hygiene manager and the hygiene directors in the hotel who make sure, now this food we are not talking about on the chefing dish. There are a lot of food which is prepared and left in the kitchen because the numbers which are expected didn't turn up. This food is never thrown in our bins. We make sure we connect with the NGOs and we transport this food in our proper hygienic, I would say, vans. And these NGOs are all located within like 2 to 3 kilometer radius from the hotels because there are so many NGOs out there. So we are happy to give it the food which is actually like 2 hours or 1 hour prepared before. We're happy to give them the balance food, and we do take permission from the guests on that. And most of the guests, because of this, the good I would say vibes during their events, they're happy to give this food away to the NGOs from our side on that part. Last but not least, what I believe that if I incentivize my the consultant or the event management planner, that if you are able to speak to the guest, and if their budget was maybe a 50 lakh rupees only on the food, hypothetically, why don't you speak to them, give them that, let's do a food, probably your budget should come down to 40 lakh rupees, where the hotel saves, you as a guest saves, we give you a better experience, your incentive fee, it was 7%, I'm going to increase to 9%. And what ma'am said, that if you incentivize a human being for the right reason, it works. So I would say when I've started incentivizing my the event management planners, they are the people who actually sell my hotels more rather than them coming from a guest point of view. So it works in the opposite manner. So that's how it's working good for us. Thank you.
That's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. And I'm coming to Akshay again. Our technology continue to advance at a rapid pace, and the hotel industry need to keep pace. How technology help in achieving sustainable development goals and sustainability during events planning its execution? Over to you, Akshay.
Yeah, that is a great question. But I want to answer the question by also saying, and Kush, you'll agree with me on this, I think, because you and I both have a hotel background, that you have right now the equilibrium of implementing technology and either reducing service or not jeopardizing the level of service is a big question. The other piece of that is in today's world, yes, we are still in the pandemic, I believe, and we are looking at technology, I think, at much faster paces and rapid paces than we should. The reason I say that is because if we start investing in the technology in the modern day, in the present day, we yet still don't know what is the ROI a year from now or 2 years from now if that technology either is needed 100%, needed 75%, or maybe not needed at all. So when we look at the technology piece, I think we have to look at it in small buckets, but in large ROIs. So in terms of the event side as well as the hospitality side, the first way to look at technology is what is the experience? If it jeopardizes the experience, then I would say that you have to look at it in a different way. If it enhances the experience, then that's a different way. There's two different meanings of enhancement and also implementation. I think, Kush, I'll come back to you for 1 second, this food and beverage thing. You know, I saw a post just 2 or 3 weeks ago where a company came out with biodegradable disposable cutleries through plants. On the bottom of it, there was an Indian villager proudly said that the Indian community in ancient years, thousands of years ago, by the guidance of rishis and munis, found that if you eat on a patarvelya pan or a leaf, it's the same thing. So I think it's also coming back to basics on what are we actually doing in sustainability and so forth. And just focusing back, and I don't mean to pick on you, Kush, but I think the teams in India have a little bit of an advantage over some teams here in USA and abroad. We've been all grown up in the thali business, right? And at homes, we would be fed, at our friends, we'd be fed in a thali style manner. I guarantee you, Kush, that if you were to pre-portion food into small bowls, whether stainless steel or bronze or copper or whatnot, giving the same experience, and the person takes the plate from one end to the farther end, and they just take one portion, you will save not only in food cost, you'll save in material cost, but it will actually be less economically impactful on your labor and staffing lines. You would actually rather have two team members that actually portion all this food out rather than have that much of a wasting situation. So I think we have to reinvent the mindset of our operators and our event planners and the industry to come back to normalcy. It's not just going out there and say, let me put this organizational chart, this Excel sheet that says if I do 50 kilos of chicken and 50 kilos of goat, etc., then I may have, 1 kilo less or whatever it is. No. That's not the way to do this. I think you have to come back to the ancient, but also the prehistoric ways how our mentors did it, right? You were a room boy. I worked in the kitchen as an executive steward, so I understand what it means to put cutleries and food back together and rooms division and all this other stuff. But Amrish, to your question as well, when you look at technology, I think we're in the middle, as we put it, the sandwich phase, to say how much technology do we want to implement going forward. One other thing is a prime example right now. We're all digitally connected at the moment. I would have rather had this conversation in person, whether it's in Delhi, in Europe, or USA, whatnot. Not a problem. It's not feasible at the moment. And please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not against any digital platforms. However, digital platforms also may work for some models. They may work 50% for some models, and they may not work for some models. My own personal example is that we bring business entrepreneurs, owners, decision makers to the table with service providers. A deal is made through handshake. A deal is made through experience. A deal is made through face-to-face interaction conversations. When we did our digital event last year, and we had to because COVID was in its prime form and peak, we saw a drop-off in attendance. We saw a drop-off in sponsorship. We saw a drop-off in experience. So I knew exactly then that for my trade organization and my business model, that I have to do less technology implementation on this digital platform. I have to figure out how do I bring Kush and Poonam ma'am to the table to talk rather than just talk through Zoom. So now if I go into buying technology for 5-7 years that has a platform like this, I don't know if I'll be able to bring the ROI back financially. But even if I don't bring it back financially, I don't know if I'll be able to bring it back from an experience level. So right now, I would advise that in sustainability, yes, it looks good on paper, it looks good in the footprint, it looks good in the boardrooms, and it looks good in presentations. But technology is an enhancement to what we have been doing for years. We should implement technology. We should take it as an enhancement. But at this time of day, I think it's it's our responsibility, like Kush and Ma'am said, to educate the event management systems, to educate the hospitality systems, and to even educate those service providers to say, what is the ROI 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 7 years from now? Because I guarantee you, if you take one piece of technology today, that sales representative is going to come knocking on your door in 6 months and say, hold on, we have to do a system upgrade. What does that mean? We have to take the CRM system and we have to rewrite it. Well, I just spent $100,000 putting Microsoft here. You're now telling me I have to do a $50,000 upgrade? So you get where I'm going with this, to say use technology, but use it as an enhancement, but also measure where it's going to go 3, 5, 7 years down the road.
Wonderful.